The alien cargo ship, the Durentis, had sent out a distress beacon 102 standard hours ago. They had to, because the engines failed due to a sudden asteroid strike of something they called black rock. This particular mineral was not really found on the periodic table, not until you got a whole lot farther than what humanity had reached at the end of the 20th century. This particular black rock, if not mixed with anything else, is impossible for sensors to find, and it moves extremely fast. One simple strike, and down went the engines. The crew sat in near silence, as they really didn't have any choice. They had to save power. Of course, that meant they had to save their air as they ran on backup. And they're slowly losing their sanity, as all they can really do is sit there and stew at the whole thought of if this black rock just had a few small pieces of anything else, they would have picked it up and they would have been able to avoid it. But no, they had to take this shortcut and wham! Most, in the darkness of space, just tried to sleep, or they eat some of the food that needed refrigeration, as they need to eat it before it went bad. If it's spoiled, it's not going to do any help for anyone, because they can't even space it. They can't risk losing any type of their air, and, well, it takes energy to either create it or also to open the doors. This did not help the smell, as, well, if you eat, it's got to come out sometime. This cargo ship simply drifts through the void, waiting for anyone to show up to help them, as if nobody shows up eventually, the power is going to go out and this ship becomes a tomb. Every so often, a few jump up as they think they're hearing something, only to realize that their brains had sent out a signal, made them think that they're hearing something, seeing something that's not it, as they sit in perfect silence. They can't speak, they can't move, they can only wait. And every once in a while, they believe that their sensors would pick up the signal of an approaching ship. In the near pitch black, as the ship rotates away from the star, a light flashes in the bridge. Then, a light buzzing noise sounds all through the ship. One of the crew turns over, reaches over with all four arms and lifts itself up and says, "Is this real?" They begin activating the lights and the sensors, and yes, it's real. A ship on intercept course is heading straight towards them. However, they're unable to activate most of the sensor arrays as they simply don't have the power anymore. They all immediately rush to the observation deck on the ventral side of the ship, hoping that they can see their saviors coming in. Some of them hope that it's one species or another. However, they dread a few that might be out there. They don't want it to be pirates or any of their own type, of course. But still, they want to know who it is, so they know how to greet them properly. Unfortunately, reaching said deck is difficult, as they have to manually open the doors and hatches. Even with 4 arms and 4 legs, it's still difficult to push this much metal aside, up and down, lift it, or whichever. Even in zero gravity, well, sometimes hatches get stuck. Once they reach the observation deck, they look out into the void in all directions, still wondering who or what might be coming to save them. They're almost aflutter, literally, as they wait. They look out, and one yells, "There it is!" They all look, and the slight shimmer of light in the distance as the ship continuously approaches. They all realize that they are truly saved. All the crew are elated that they will now not die in the void. They won't be sitting there and slowly starve to death, die of dehydration, or worse yet, slowly freeze to death once all the power is drained and the heat is just not functioning anymore. They're almost pushing each other off to the side as they look closer and closer, thinking who might be coming, and they see the ship approaching, coming into view. Then they see, as the satellite can be seen by all of them, more and more the crew, as they realize, no longer celebrate. The crew is silent as the bulky metallic space frame silently passes by the observation deck. The deliberate movement of the vessel as it gets itself into position to dock, they can read right along the side the name of the ship, batteries not included. It's written in standard block human across both sides. The human ship rotates, latches on, and they can feel the ship shudder as it pulls each of them close. This is a bit violent, and the crew immediately rush to try and get them. However, continuously stepping and hitting on each other slows their progress significantly as they try to reach the upper floors. As they reach the hallway where they can see there's lights out there. What are those? Those are lights from the humans' exosuits. And as soon as they realize that's what these were, the lights of the ship itself activate, and then there's the sound of their engines spinning up, coming to life, and humming through the entire ship itself. The humans see the crew and immediately draw their weapons as they have no idea who it is at first. As they see the crew start yelling, squawking, bleating, anything to tell the humans to stop, as they explain that they are the crew. They're not some sort of strange creature trying to eat them or anything like that. Yet they know that human weapons are very dangerous. They worry that the humans are now thinking, well, maybe we'll just make a meal out of them. Especially since the humans don't raise the visors, don't remove their helmets, is seemingly ever. Everyone remembers, and they know how poorly this species, these humans, were treated by other species in the past. Wars, enslavements, forcible breeding, mutations, and even hunted for sport. It is well known that after humans realized that they were being played by other species, they forced those species away, and no other species would ever touch them, ever teach them how to reach out in the void, how to communicate, how to do anything. So humanity just figured it out for themselves. The known universe realized after a while, after dealing with humans, how violent they can be. If you insult them, you better be able to insult them back, or they'll just laugh at you. But if you harm them, they will destroy you. So it's just better to leave them alone. Now, they're here, looking at the crew, not moving with their weapons raised like some sort of robots. Without warning, all the humans suddenly move away and rush down one of the corridors. The crew realize where they are going and immediately hurry up to follow the humans as they enter into the cargo bays. When they get inside, they realize that all the doors have been opened. All the doors, all the hatches, everything is open. There's nothing to stop the humans from searching the entire ships. They find the humans in suits, scurrying about, taking cargo out of the cages. The live cargo is there as they laid them down. And it's clear they're giving medical attention to any creature that was in the cargo hold. Seeing that the cargo had been tampered with, the captain started screaming and wailing, swinging all four of his arms around as he came forward trying to stop the humans, bringing to protest, and the crew even began to scream as well, believing what the humans were doing was theft. That's until a large metal hand backhanded the captain so hard that there's an audible breaking of bones as his body does a complete 270-degree backflip before crashing into the deck plates. The crew, shocked at that point, is no longer yelling. They go up and check on the captain as the humans went from bay to cargo bay, emptying out all the live, or at least those that are still live at this point, cargo. Anything clearly dead is left behind. However, it's clear that anything they think they can keep alive is immediately treated, the first thing of which is a whole bunch of nanomachines. The crew had heard about this, but they never had thought to use this. Humans are known for these, and it's one of the reasons they live so long. Some of them have been known to live several centuries and not really care that they lived so long. But the crew didn't have time to think about this. The crew immediately grabbed the captain and dragged them to the medical bay and made sure that the captain still had his brains inside his head. For 30 hours, they watched over to assure that the captain not only survived, but was able to get on his feet. As he was able to stand, though with some difficulty, the door opens, and a human, still in the exosuits, walks forward with a furry quadruped at his side. The quadruped looks forward, seems to sniff the air, raise its ears up, then currently drops them down quickly, and it was clearly angry as it simply growled at the crew. Yet a single command from the human, in a language they didn't know, and a small pat from a metal hand on its head seemed to calm it down. That is when the human, speaking through a translator, simply said, "Follow me, all of you." And they led them to an empty cargo bay. Realizing where they are, they thought maybe they're going to get spaced or something. Perhaps this is going to be where they're going to be held up until they're brought back. Perhaps they don't know. Humans are an enigma when it comes to all other species. However, it seemed as though the human started positioning himself between the crew and the door before speaking. Through the translator, he said, "Your ship has drifted into the Moose sector of human space. As such, you are now in its jurisdiction and beholden to its laws. You have all hereby been charged with smuggling, forced abduction with intent to sell, kidnapping, illegal trade in exotic flora and fauna, torture, forced abduction of minors with intent to sell, forced prostitution, and murder. How do you plead?" The captain, seeming not to care about what the human is saying, "You have no right to condemn our actions. You're just humans. Our business is none of your consequence. Now, repair the ship, place all items back inside their containers, and get off my ship so that we may leave. If you do not, the consequences will be dire for you humans." With this statement, you have submitted your argument without proof of innocence. You have been found guilty on all counts listed prior. So what? We pay a small fine. Take that Deathworld beast you see that you've apparently tamed as payment and get off my ship. You misunderstand. These are high crimes. So it's a high fine. The human is once again silent inside his suit as the door opens behind him and several other humans walk in with creatures in tow. Other canines, large felines, an adolescent brown bear of all things, a few creatures that are completely unknown, never seen by humans, but apparently sentient enough to realize what the hell was going on, just like any other dog. Holding the leashes are humans with women and children and a half a dozen species that were inside their cages. Given the ages and the beauty of the females, along with the age and potential beauty of the children, this shows exactly the type of hell they were going to be facing if the engines were simply fixed or if the engines hadn't failed in the first place. Realizing what was about to happen, a few of the crew tried to make a deal, begging for something else, anything, and they looked for any other option. Even the crew's lone female dropped to her knees in front of the shaggy Rottweiler and begged and pleaded and even offered her body to not be held to account, claiming that she was just a crew member and this was her first mission with them. A couple of men even joined in, begging on all four knees, begging for any type of leniency. As they said this, the human that had been speaking before raised a hand in a gesture universally known as calm down and shut up for a second, just by holding the palm forward. "Do you truly wish to repay your crimes with your bodies?" Without hesitation, they began to beg the humans, as several animals pulled hard on their restraints, seeming to want a piece of whatever was in front of them. They begged so much that the human almost couldn't say anything and eventually had to slam his hands together to get their attention. The sudden sound made them all look up in pleading eyes. The human simply said, "Well bargained and done." He didn't have to say anything else as the three were taken away by two other humans. The human who had been speaking still looked forward behind the visor. He hadn't moved at all. But he spoke again, saying, "As for the rest of you," he then reaches over and removes his hand from the collar and says one word to the creature at his side. "Sick 'em!" On this signal, everybody released whichever beast they were holding, and as the first dog charged in, the other animals joined in a frenzy. They matte-painted the cargo bay in the purplish blood of the captain's species, next to the green and red of different species that sprayed out all over each other. Most of the children present turned away as the crew was torn apart by the creatures they had treated so poorly. The crew screaming in pain as the bear began to eat its prey, ass first. The felines bit into the neck as the dogs grabbed a hold of every limb of the captain, all 12 different limbs. Well, 13 if you count where the German shepherd reached in, grabbed on with his fangs, and bit down hard, all of them thrashing and tossing around as the wolves tear everything to pieces viciously until something just gave, ripping parts off. Through all this, the humans all stood like statues as the warm blood splashed around, even splashing their faces. As the screams ended, the human turned and led everyone out of the cargo bay. But before they left, one human simply said, "Court's adjourned." The crew that surrendered were placed in cages next to the live cargo that was no longer alive. They were stripped of all possessions, to including clothing, given minimal food and water, just enough to keep them alive. As they sit there, stewing in their own filth, right next to the decaying bodies of those they had let starve to death or die of thirst in excruciating pain, they could feel the ship itself enter FTL space and then exit. Oddly enough, they didn't feel the jerk from when the human ship was supposed to actually let go of this one. Then, they could feel the sudden pull of artificial gravity. They knew what this meant. They had entered a space station, and then they all got knocked into the bars as the clamps engaged, seemingly grabbing a hold of the ship as it let go of the human ship that was holding it. These surrendered crew were too far away from each other to converse. They just had to sit there, not knowing what was going to happen next. A few minutes later, the exterior cargo bay pressure doors began to open, and many humans in the same black exosuits began to enter. No words were spoken as dead cargo was removed and the area was sanitized. The crates full of goods were cleared out, and the surrender crew thought they'd be let out of the cages, but they were not. The cages were simply pulled forward as though they were some sort of cargo, and they were placed one by one from different bays into a repulsor lift cart and taken out. As they left their ship, they went into the station, a vast open area of which, and this was the first time they would see humans outside their armor, at least in real life, not in some sort of hologram or some sort of photograph. They looked at all the humans. It was clear genetic engineering was something they did a lot. All of them tall, muscular, lean, and more than willing to show themselves off a little bit, as it seemed like every single one of the males simply didn't wear an exterior covering on their upper torso, or arms, or even their head. It seemed as though the females barely wore any at all. That's when a large male shows up. A very large one. He has some sort of device in his hand, a small, flat digital device. He looks at all three and says, Welcome to Deep Space 69. I'm the local magistrate, and I'm here to escort you to your new accommodations for the next, hold on. He looked on his tablet, started scrolling through, then turned to a human next to him and said, "Is this correct? You're kidding. Wow. 420 human years. That is going to be your sentence, upon which you are going to be released back to your own species. However, if any of you wish to end your sentence early, we can accommodate you." All three were sitting there looking at each other, frightened, dirty, a little cold, and thinking all the same thing. Oh, shit. What did I get myself into? Hello everybody, this is Syntax. Thank you for joining me today on this short story. But before I go, I need to send out a big thank you to a bunch of my supporters, and those will be Prozac and Pancakes, SS Demon, MTF Guard, Brian Kemp, Julius Boone, Douglas Scarborough, Erica Gem, and Guardian Sage. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel. Everybody else, I'll see you on the next one. This is Syntax, punching out.